Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio podcast, brought to you by your hosts Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
It is rainy right now, so it is what it is.
Yeah. I'm bringing my daughter, so you get to meet her, and she can run. She can run against you on the treadmill.
She can run her ass off, right?
Yeah. So she's in good shape now. So she's doing a lot of training, and so.
My God, I just got sick to my stomach right there. You just said that. I know it's already in store. This kid's gonna smoke me. No, we're gonna have fun. She runs in the true form, right?
Yeah, she has some experience. But yet right now she's specifically training for high jump. So, there's some running involved, but certainly she's doing a lot more like core stuff and core flexibility and jumping, obviously. So it's kind of interesting. I'd be interested to see what you think of her. So.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I'd love to do some interval work with her if she's down. I don't know if she's into that.
Yeah, because she needs to work out because she's missing 3-4 training sessions when we're out there. So
all right, so would she be down for Rob filming us during maybe you and Rob can like film it as you're putting us through a workout? We can talk about it.
Yeah, you guys can do all the drills together. You guys can do the treadmill work, some resisted acceleration, med ball stuff, everything, because that's what she does anyways, right? So that'll be good for her.
All right, so we'll go through a workout.
Yeah.
And maybe break it up into some different components.
Yeah.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah, and I'm going to get her to film when I do my course on Saturday, Sunday. I'm going to use her because I have to. The second day is the planning course, and that I haven't done that really yet. So now I'm going to get her to film the practical sessions and then make that part of my virtual course, my online course for that. So but there'll be like 50 people there. It's actually sold pretty well.
Where is it again? Is it at the same place it was last year?
Same place, that Reload, very close to Union Square.
Is Pat coming to that or no?
He's not, because he's doing something out in Jersey for the weekend. So,
Who do you know that's going?
I think Balzer's going to go. Cooperman, I just invited them. I said, hey, you guys just come. One of Rob Panarello's guys from Garden City is coming out, Dean Matalone. So he does their performance training at their Garden City facility. And a lot of PTs, honestly. A lot of PTs have registered. So, it'd be interesting. Even if you can pop in for the last bit on the Sunday and I can introduce you to everybody. That would be good.
That'd be great. Did you look over the business course?
Yes, I've gone through pretty much all of it, and
of
course it's got my brain going like I got to get on some shit here and I got to get my stuff together. And that's interesting because like I was thinking about like 5 years ago when I walked into Drive and how it kind of changed my thinking, like whether it was you doing your stuff for social media, which back then 2017 was still it was still out of reach for me. I'm just like, oh, okay, I guess I got to start doing this. And then the second part was just having to work with your staff and teach. That kind of got me in this sort of like, okay, maybe I can build a course around this or a series of courses, right? So that 5 years ago was kind of pivotal for me in terms of my perspective and my thinking and being more proactive. So that's one of the things I wanted to thank you for. So.
Oh, no, I really appreciate it. I mean, it's, like I said, that was a great few weeks when you were out here, right? We, I think the amount of attention you gave to my staff, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget you for that. So thank you. But yeah, it is pretty wild how all this stuff has evolved. And I was having a conversation the other day with someone. They said, did you ever think you'd be doing this right now? And I'm like, well, when I became a coach back in 1999, if you told me I'd be, doing social media, developing online programs, online communities, giving, retreats, online fitness business talks, and everything didn't exist back then. It was like everything I just said didn't exist. We didn't know what social media was. There weren't any apps. Like what's an app? Like an appetizer, like something you eat? Like we didn't know, like there was no you had no idea that 25 years from now, this would have been my path. So the answer is no. I had no idea. It was not part of my business plan. But I also think a lot of us try and get so detailed in the path. You hear this whole line, start at the finish line. And I also know that like there are going to be curveballs. Most people who are listening to this right now are not going to get involved in one profession or one career and stay in that. Like you are going to live in different countries, different cities, different states. You are going to move around different positions. You are going to be asked to do things that might be out of your scope. You're going to have to try and figure it out. Exactly what you said about the social media. I remember in 2017, you were saying, oh my God, I got to really start doing this. You were almost a bit intimidated. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah. I was like,
you ended up becoming so good at it because you just became a storyteller. Today, Rob and I had a conversation because right now with social media, social media has been a blessing for us. It really has. It's allowed more eyeballs to be on, our businesses and what it is that we do. But there's no figuring out this algorithm or, people are trying to say, oh, figure out. There are posts I put up that are great. There are posts I put up that I think are going to be great that crap out. There's stuff that has, like I put up something of Frank and I on Halloween in skeleton costumes, training with our shirts off. It got 150,000 views. It's like, really, it's going to get that's going to have more engagement than you and I sitting here talking about coaching or business or this, that. It's just the way that the clock turns. But what I need to do is we need to be, and this is my advice to everyone, you need to believe in what it is you're putting out there. I put up a post today about this guy, John Albacoco, in his journey from 515 pounds down. And I felt good about that. I haven't even looked at the analytics. That is what I want my page to be about. I want it to be about success stories. I want it to be about improving someone from their fitness standpoint, their coaching standpoint, someone who may think it's out of reach. That's what I believe in doing. And all I can do is stay true to my plan. I can't sit here and try and put things up that I think are going to play to the likes of Instagram or the likes of what people want. I got to stay true to what it is. I got to continue to build my business, build my email list, make connections, throw balls in the air, which no one's better than I am. Like, that, like getting connections and putting myself in the right place is something I've kind of strived to do. But when we sit here and we try and get too analytical, we try and, overthink things. I also think when it comes to the world of social media right now, we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, I was watching, I think it was a couple of different documentaries on films, and like all the films that you and I probably think were great films. When you ask the actors when they're filming it, they're like, we thought this was going to be a joke, a flop, like Star Wars, for instance, right? Or Back to the Future, or whatever it was. And all the actors and people involved in the project were like, okay, whatever, I just got to do this. And then, of course, it takes off. So the actors don't know, the producers don't really know, right? So how are we going to know?
Do you remember Jamie Farr from MASH?
Yes.
Okay. I met him at Ellis Island at a black tie event. And I was young. I had to be maybe 18, 19 years old.
One of the first famous cross-dressers.
Yeah. No, he was unbelievable. He was one of the funniest human beings, but he was in a movie. One of my all-time favorite movies was called The Cannonball Run. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yes.
I've watched that movie 5,000 times. And it's kind of ironic because you know how I am. I don't approach celebrities. It's just been in my business since I've been in the business. But my father was with me and saw Jamie Farr, was literally standing right next to us at the bar and said, oh, by the way, biggest fan of one of your movies. And Jamie Farr looks at me and he goes, what movie? And I smile at him and I go, oh, the Cannonball Run. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, you were the one. And I go, well, what do you mean? He's like, oh, you have no idea. He goes, that movie tanked in the box office. Like,
really?
First off, yeah, he said, first off, that movie went so not over budget, over the amount of time that it was supposed to take to film it. Because he says I think it was a Hal Needham film. He goes, all they were doing with Burt Reynolds and all these, like you had all these like monster names in Hollywood, like all these Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra ended up being in, I think,
Jackie Chan.
Yeah, Jackie Chan. You go on and on and on with all these. I think Shirley MacLaine was in the second one. Like all the kind of
incredible notables.
And he said that they all were having such an incredible time at the trailers. They were just getting shit-faced like all day, every day. And the director's looking at them going, we got to film. And they would just be hysterically laughing, playing cards, smoking cigars and drinking. And he goes, literally, like the movie took months extra to end up filming.
Wow.
And so he looked at me, he goes, oh, you were the one. And I go, well, what do you mean? And he told me that story and I was shocked. And I was like, but that ended up, he goes, yes. But later on, after the movie was released, it ended up becoming like an American classic.
Yeah.
It just was one of those, like, it goes out, Dom DeLuise, Burt Reynolds. It goes down to me as one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I've watched it. Half of the movie's politically incorrect. You can't put up half of the stuff that these movies have. I mean, Farrah Fawcett was in it. You had the proctologist doctor. You had the priest in the red Ferrari. All these things now. Joe Klecko is in it. We can go on and on and on. It's fascinating to me that something can crap out and then come back to be this classic. One of my all-time favorite films.
Oh, absolutely. And I was actually working in Vancouver, and I was working with Richard Dean Anderson, MacGyver.
Yeah.
So he's up here, and then in the trailer, we're working out, and then one of the guys that comes in was Dom DeLuise's son, Peter DeLuise, and so he's telling me about how his dad had a hip replacement, and they cut off his the end of the femur or whatever, and they said, oh, here, you can have it, right? And they cooked it up and all that in a soup or something. And I'm just like, oh my god, this is Dom DeLuise's son.
It's also like Dom DeLuise, Captain Chaos. I mean, everything in that movie. I mean, I may even go watch it this weekend now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's God. I don't even know how do we just get on the top?
Well, it's just like nobody knows if that's going to be a hit or that's going to be a flop or this is a joke, right? So you don't know. You just got to do it.
And then I think what starts happening, the example now that we gave was the reason why was social media. I think people start trying to craft things that are a little bit different, that aren't really true to themselves. In a way, it's somewhat fake, because if you start putting out a message that isn't really your message for the sake of pleasing others, like, are you really, I don't know, are you really a true coach, right? Like I think if you're, I'm one of these coaches, I'm not a yeller. I'm not a yeller. Like I won't sit there, I won't yell at people. You're not either. I will step in front of someone and I will get face to face with them and I'll say, listen, this is what I need you to do. And I'll deliver it in a tone that I feel like for me, it's powerful. For the person I'm trying to teach, it's powerful. Me turning around and dropping F-bombs and screaming at people, it's not my style of coaching. Now, if I'm going to turn around and decide to do that in one day to please a network or please social media or to please the fact that I'm getting more engagement, that's not really portraying what it is I do. And I feel like we're seeing a lot of that nowadays. I feel like we're seeing a lot of people that are displaying a message that is not really their true message. I mean, I think you do a great job of when you coach, you're not a yeller. You stand there, you talk, you explain, you teach. And I think that hits home a lot more. Your style of coaching is, well, I'm going to approach this from a very simplistic fashion. And I'm going to do this in a way that's very understandable and palatable. If I have to explain what style of coach Derek Hansen is, that's clearly what you are.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest compliment you can get is like, hey, your stuff is very easy to understand and implement. And that is probably the best compliment, rather than like, your stuff is so like complicated and cutting edge and whatever. It's like, no, you don't want to be there. You want to be, and again, whether I teach a course, on a Saturday and a Sunday, I always want people saying to people on Monday, you can use any of this stuff, right? It's pretty easy, right? And I'm the dumbest guy in the room, right? So if I can do it, you can do it, right? And I think that's a really important thing with any of the stuff that we present. Is a friend of mine always says, like, just be boring, right? If you're boring, it may not seem like it's exciting, but it's certainly easy for people to understand, and then, just be repetitively boring. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that, but certainly I understand what his point is.
Well, I also think that, this might come very easy to you or very easy to me. And when you're sitting there and you're rambling off, it's very easy to lose someone, right? We really don't know, like when you're speaking to a crowd of a couple hundred people, you don't know how people are going to absorb that information. You don't know if they're more of a visual learner or more of a, oh, well, I have to go through this, or I'm more of a reader. Like my wife can sit there and just read, and just absorb all that information. I got to read something. I got to read it again. It's the way that I am. I have to go. I have to try it myself. And the second I try it and I get it, I'll never forget it, right? Like that's just how I'm. On the other hand, I can hear a movie line from 25 years ago and recite it to the tone, to the T, without missing. We're all built a little bit differently. But I think going out there and assuming that everyone is absorbing that information the same way, that's not the right way to go about it. And then I really feel like that where, you know, listening, enjoying listening to yourself speak too much is also a negative thing. Like you gotta be able to really read the crowd. And I think that's what a good presenter does, is they can look, a good coach, they can look at the crowd and they can immediately say, oh man, this person's just not getting this. Like you've seen it. You've spoken to people and you know,
when you speak to people and you look at everybody, it's really hard. And you can reiterate this, but it's really hard to see if people are enjoying it or engaged sometimes. Cause sometimes I look out there and I'm like, okay, maybe they're not getting it. And then after it's done, there's one guy I remember, he was sitting right in front, like totally stone faced, poker face, didn't ask a question. And I'm like, okay, I'm not reaching this guy. And then he came up after and he said, that was amazing. That was great. I would take that again. And I'm like, okay, I couldn't tell.
Yeah,
So,
I couldn't tell at all. And well, 100%. I mean, I always try and read the crowd, not by what their expression is in that moment, but there's certain triggers or there's certain things that I will say that I know I should get a response from. And if I don't, then I know I'm screwed. But it's like, I think, feeding off the crowd, my best presentations or my best coaching moments are when the crowd is with you, as well as I do, when you start feeding off their energy a bit as well. Right. And then I think that allows you to be maybe a little bit more animated, or maybe you dive into that bag of tricks a little bit more. Maybe the energy comes out a little bit more. And I think that's obviously helpful, but you're not always going to receive that from the people you're speaking to.
yeah. Cause last time I was in New York with you, same venue, I think Kenny Santucci was there, right? And I didn't know, like, he didn't say anything, he didn't talk to me, he was just sort of in the back and just sort of, absorbing the information. And then obviously he messaged me later like, oh, that was really great. And then I see what he does in his social media and he seems very animated and but some people might just be very quiet and just taking it in. And that doesn't mean they don't enjoy it or they're not getting something out of it, but that's just the way they do it. So you don't know. Yeah.
I think you got to take ownership over it, right? You got to take ownership over who it is you are. I think it's pretty difficult to take someone and make them into something that they're just not. Like if you're not an animated coach and you're not, someone who's out there and vibrant and jumping all over the place, why are you trying to become that? Like, it's just, I've listened to many different speakers. You've listened to many different speakers, and I've listened to speakers that are incredibly boring, but their information is incredible. And you're there because it's like reading a book. Like you're just sitting there to absorb everything in, to get the details, to get the information. I think when it's like when one of our really good friends, Pat Davidson, like Pat is a coach where I've even said to him, like, Pat, like you are like, there's always someone smarter, but like you are there to coach coaches. Like you need to go in there and remember that. You don't need to do anything else besides going in there and, educating people and in a way being the smartest person in the room. That's why they're listening to you, in that topic, right? Jordan Shallow, I think Jordan's a very animated speaker, but Jordan is there to coach coaches, right? And he's there at a very high level. And I think what Jordan does an incredible job of is he recognizes and understands, what it is, who is he speaking to, what his message is, and he's taking ownership over it. And in other categories where he knows this isn't my realm, he's very, nope, this isn't what I do. And I love that. That's what I admire about him.
Yeah. Staying in your lane is definitely something that you need to really work on sometimes. Right. And who's like a really good presentation or good presenter that you've seen where you're like, oh, wow, that surprised me.
Well, he doesn't surprise me. I think Greg Rose is a tremendous presenter. He's always someone that I listen to and I love listening to. Brandon Marcello is always a great presenter, and you know Brandon well. I mean, but Brandon's also presenting information that, you know, I geek out on. Like, he's talking a lot about wearables, and he's speaking a lot about third-party testing and research and cool stuff, but he's doing it in a very user-friendly fashion. So it'd be very easy for someone who is highly intelligent to come in and preach Brandon's information and make it not understandable. The fact that Brandon comes in and he speaks to the crowd, he understands the demographic he's speaking to, I admire. And I got to be honest, anytime I'm at Perform Better and Brandon's speaking, I try and run into his room. Even if 50% of the information is similar to what I've heard from him before, like, I'm always picking up something new. Greg Rose, I think, is one of the best presenters I've ever seen. And Greg can literally turn around and put a PowerPoint together 5 minutes before he goes out there, and you're sitting there and you're like blown away. But again, very easy. You and I have studied anatomy and kinesiology, and we understand how the human body works. I don't want to be sitting there feeling stupid. Like, oh my God, I don't know what that term is. Oh my God, like, what are they referring to here? Fancy words, fancy terminologies, insertions, this and that. You know, and those guys, I think, do a tremendous job. Let's back it up a little bit. What about Mike Boyle? You know, like, looking at like the godfather of strength and conditioning, like, he does an incredible job in going out. And Mike jokes around because Mike's like, oh, you know what? Like, I'm talking about the same stuff for the last 25, 30 years. And I'm like, well, I'm in the crowd. I'm always listening and I'm always absorbing something. And for some reason, when he's delivering that message, you're not drifting. I think those are the good speakers. If you can listen to someone and you're not drifting or you're not going somewhere, it's tough to sit there for hours at a clip and listen to someone teach. It's like, go back in school. Like, I wasn't great at doing that in the 5th grade. I'm not great at doing it now. If it's a topic I love, no, seriously, if it's a topic I love, I'll sit there. But, you know, if someone's, you know, sitting there trying to teach me history of Christian ethics, like, am I going to be sitting there like, oh, wow, this is amazing? Like, no, this is a topic that maybe I'm not, you know, totally dialed in on, and that's going to be that much more difficult. So, I mean, I can go, you know, on and on with speakers. What about you?
I mean, a good example you brought up before was Pat Davidson. I remember in 2015, 2016, I was in Boston to do a talk, and then the guy before me was Dr. Pat Davidson, going to talk about energy systems, and I'm like, oh, great, energy systems. Yeah, I got a PhD guy talking about it. So I gotta have to like wake everybody up after that presentation because I was following him. And he did a very good job to make it very, like you said, relatable, interesting. He had good stories and anecdotes like that really, you know, kind of drove the points home. And so that was one of the ones where I'm like, wow, I gotta, you know, that's the first time I met him. I gotta connect with this guy and find out what else he's doing. And I guess, you know, he was going to go back to New York and start something up with, oh, I can't remember his name, but you know, they had some big gym or some thing, and he was going to be in charge of research, and it never panned out. But that's the one.
Oh, Joe Dodell.
Yeah.
Over at Peak. Yeah, I remember when he was going through
yeah. So I'm like, oh, this guy switched on. This is great. I remember it also at Boston, BS and PG, they had Robert Sapolsky, who did the book Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers or whatever. And he's like a Stanford prof, and really, but he delivered his presentation very, very nicely, and I was just impressed with the information and the way he delivered it, even though he is an academic. So there's 2 examples of academics who, if you remember being in college or university, there weren't a lot of great presenters in university, right? They just gave you information. So I thought those were 2 really good examples of people who could relate that information to a general population of professionals.
100%. I mean, you're a perfect example of it also. I mean, you know, not to blow smoke, but when I can't tell you how many times I've listened to you speak, whether it's at Drive, it's, you know, when you take someone who's a bit OCD and you put them in a room and you tie them down, it's like, and they got to listen to now hours and hours of content. If they're staying engaged, you're doing a really good job. It's like the ultimate compliment for an actor, I think, is anytime I would go watch them on Broadway or watch a movie, you forget you're actually looking at them. You feel like you're looking at someone else, especially when you know them on a personal level. I think that is very magical. And I think with a good presenter, it's the same thing. At different, I'll Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, I think she's become a great presenter. She keeps your interest the entire time. Friends, Luca Hosever, someone that I think, very highly of. Tremendous presenter, tremendous people person, practices what he preaches. Probably more similar to the way that I go about doing things with, we both own brick and mortars. We both have a digital presence. We both, have done a lot of coaching in that sense. And so I can relate with him. Kelsey Heenan, giving a woman that I think becomes very, very palatable, very relatable, right? And she comes out, she understands business, and she's built up an incredible business with her husband. So for me, when you hear people like that get up and speak and present, and you're adding a lot, like I just heard Gunnar Peterson for the first time, right? And I walked into Lucas Strong event, and it was the funniest thing, because our business, it's small, right? It's you're hearing these names, I've heard Gunnar's name for 20 plus years. I mean, Gunnar's probably got more training experience than I do. I mean, the guy's probably been in the business 30 years.
Yeah.
We've never met each other. And we literally walked into the same room together. We look up, we see each other, we point at each other, we just start laughing. And we just gave over, we started hugging. And I'm like, already know? He's like, no, I moved to Nashville. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be out there. He's like, are we getting together? I'm like, yeah. And we're talking about he's like, do you drink beer? I'm like, I love beer. We're getting the wives together. We're going to dinner. But then I listened to Gunnar, and you're like, okay, I get it. I get why he's gotten to where he's gotten to in his career. Right. I get, and I think Gunnar's a great coach. I've watched him coach. We've all taken criticism. Some people will criticize, Don has his shirt off a little too much, or whatever, or maybe, Gunnar's doing crazy exercises. He admitted to that sometimes. No, it's interesting. It's what he does. It's part of his training. But when you go in there and you watch this guy train, he understands why he's approaching certain things. He's a very intelligent coach, probably one of the better coaches walking around over there. And there's a reason why he has the people that he has. So, but when you listen to these people speak for 2 minutes, you're like, light bulb goes off. You're like, okay, I get it. There's a reason why they're up there speaking. I get it. They're paying tribute to other coaches. They're confident. Their delivery's fantastic. Their information's fantastic. You're always getting something out of it. How many times have you gone and listened to the same person over and over, and you leave there and there's like a light bulb going off? I do it with you all the time. It happens to me all the time with you, especially.
Yeah. If you can go to the same, whatever stand-up comic, and they're delivering the same jokes, and you still get enjoyment out of it, it's the same thing, right? It's that delivery. And the one guy you brought in to drive when I was there was Mark Fisher. And I thought, wow, guy has so much energy and enthusiasm. I got to step my game up. It's good to see people like that.
Yeah, but Mark was a perfect example. I'm going to give Mark a lot of love right now, because I think Mark is a marketing genius. I think Mark is probably one of the more intelligent gym owners I've ever met, hands down. But before I met Mark, it was and I said it to him. It's oh, it's the guy who has, gyms, dildos hanging from the ceiling. And you're like, really? You're suddenly passing judgment. I would never do that. And then I remember walking into his facility for the first time, and I apologized. I said, Mark, I got to be honest. I didn't know what to expect. I was probably passing judgment before I should have, and I'm sorry. And he just kind of laughed. He's like, dude, please, everyone does. But I walked in, and there was a guy teaching a class. He was in a pair of briefs, and they had great music on. And I remember them, the whole entire class, there's probably 20 people in the class. They were swinging a kettlebell. 20 people swinging a kettlebell at the same time. Non-instructors, may I add. It's a rarity. How often do you see? There's a reason why you don't see a class of 20 people swinging a kettlebell. It's highly technical. It's tough to coach in a group setting, especially if you have people coming. All 20 of them, roughly 20 of them, were nailing it. And this coach, perfect swings, hard style swings, snappy at the top, fast on the way down. And he was having fun. He was yelling. He created this environment that enabled people who looked at fitness, who would used to say, I do not enjoy this, to turn around and say, this is fun. This is an environment I want to be in. And I looked at that and I said, this is coaching. Mark said to me, he goes, Don, I'm not going after the people that have been in love with this their whole life like you. I'm going after the 99th percentile, the 99% of the population who struggle to get off of the couch. I'm going after people that are in theater who haven't enjoyed doing this, the people that I relate to. And I just looked at him and I was like, dude, this was 10 years ago. I said, Mark, you're a genius.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, oh my God. And you can't judge a book by its cover anymore. You can't hear, like when I saw you for the first time training, one of your clients, and you guys were doing specific exercises. You and I talked about this. It would have been very easy to say, like, really, they bench press 3 days in a row. Why? No, but there's a reason behind that I'm not going to discuss. No, it's like, we don't want to get into it. That's the client's personal information. There's a reason.
Yeah.
But you got to admit, like, you can't. I feel like the coaches that become really good are the ones that aren't making judgments anymore. When I hear coaches that get insecure or they make judgment or, oh, that's crap. I just got a phone call from someone. This person's protein is at this level for their body weight. What do you think? They're working with a nutritionist. For their body weight, I looked at their fats, perfect. I looked at their carbs, perfect. I look at their protein was a bit low. Now, the Don from 15 years ago would have been like, no, they should be at a gram per pound of body weight. You know what I said? I said, everything looks great. This person having their protein that's a bit low, they're not going to die from it. There's probably a reason why the nutritionist is doing this. And I do not want to pass judgment until we have a conversation with the nutritionist. Right. And I think that was the intelligent answer, rather than turning around and saying, well, we should raise that. Well, no. Why am I saying that? I don't know. I have no information on the client. I have no information on the nutritionist. I do not have the right to turn around and make an assumption. I am becoming the person who I think is at fault by making this assumption and throwing out some type of a reactive response.
Yep.
Rather than me turning around and saying, Derek, why were you doing this with so-and-so? Don, why were you doing this with this high celebrity client? Why were you taking that approach? Explain to me. Rather than coming in and saying, Don's doing this to that person, it's crap. Like, no, you don't know the reason why.
Exactly. And I think that's obviously something you learn through experience and trial and error. And I'm the same as you know. I just kind of sit back. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens here. Let's assess. And then, what is it? Charlie Francis always said, think twice, speak once, right? You got to watch things and make sure you know what's going on before you say anything.
I do that now with text messages and emails because I think things have been completely lost. It's one thing to go in and listen to someone's tone. It's another thing to turn around and out of nowhere, you're looking at a message and you might be articulating that a certain way. Someone might be typing it out with an intention, and maybe you just got off a bad phone call or got a bad response and you're angry about something you're reading. What are they saying? Blah, blah, blah. And you're firing something back. Like I've really learned not to be as reactive and sometimes type out the email or whatever and save it in drafts.
Yep.
And just sleep on it. And then you come back the next day. And it's been one of the best lessons that I can't tell you, anytime I've sent out a reactive response, I always end up regretting it. I mean, it's the truth. Yeah. I'm not ashamed to admit it. It's like you turn around, it could be family, it could be relatives. It's like, all right, like let's get on a phone call and let's talk about this. Or if I get something in now, I'm notorious for calling someone back. Like, is everything all right? I'm like, I'm calling you right now because I don't want this to get lost in translation.
Yep.
This is how I was absorbing your message, and talk to me. And we just end up having a conversation, and you hear their tone and you hear how they're delivering it. And you're like, I really feel like too much is going into, having that, delivering that tone, letting them hear your voice and how you're delivering it. I feel like is as important as the words. I mean, what was that drill? I mean, someone turned around. I mean, it was years ago when I think I went out to QVC to present a product that I ended up going on television with, and did live TV on QVC, and they took the exact same message, and they were like, the whole lesson was they were meeting with all these product owners, and they were putting us through, they put you through school for like a day. Like you go through QVC and you have to sit there and you got to go through these drills and you have to write and you have to respond and you have to show them that you're able to, respond the right way. And it's funny how one of the drills where they were taking a specific sentence and they were delivering it in one tone, and then they turn around, they take the sentence and they say the same sentence and deliver it in an exactly different tone. And I forgot what the sentence was. I'm messing this story up right now, but trying to envision how powerful it was, because it was the exact same message delivered in two different fashions. And it was a completely different message because of how it was delivered.
Interesting.
And you're just sitting there going, holy shit, it was the exact same words, but suddenly they changed the tone and the way that they delivered it to you. And then out of nowhere, you're sitting here going, oh, wow, that went from being a really good thing to a really bad thing. And I think that's what we forget when we're doing this all the time.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I saw you already advertising some Black Friday type sales. That's pretty proactive. I've got to get on that too. But what kind of stuff are you selling right now? Just programs and your courses?
Yeah, I think there's going to be programs. I mean, we have a brand new video library coming in. So we had a very extensive video library, and a lot of, as many people download it, there's even more people that haven't downloaded it. So we're trying to say these programs are fantastic, but we're going to wipe out 90% of that video library, and I'm putting up all new content. I just wrote roughly 20 new programs over the last couple months.
Wow.
We've shot the library. We're putting that all back up. Super excited about this. We're redoing our playbook library. We're going to be posting that up there again soon. Like, we're always, I don't want anyone ever to get bored. I don't want everyone to come and say, it's time to move on. Like, there's so much. When it comes down to program design, there's so much stuff that makes sense, and there's so many different directions. I mean, just laying out programs differently. There's, tempos, rep schemes. What's the focus, right? Are we clusters, drop sets, supersets, running the rack? Like, there's so many different ways that we can go about creating a stimulus and doing it in an exciting fashion. And I believe we can do that while improving the way someone moves. So yeah, I'm very excited for all these great things that we have going on. What do you guys have going on? What do you have on your program?
I'm basically gonna head out and see you next week. So I'll post this episode Monday so that people have the heads up. But I'm gonna see you. I'm gonna teach the course on the weekend. Then I'm gonna see you right after, or maybe even during, and then spend some time with you. So
perfect. And let's do our next. I think we're going to try and meet next Friday. You're traveling, right?
I'll be there. We'll be touring Manhattan, but yeah, I'll be in town.
Let's do our podcast Monday or Tuesday when you're out here. We can do it from here.
Yep.
All right.
Sounds good, man.
Safe travels, brother. You're the best.
Thank you.